The right-wing populist Nigel Farage is launching a campaign against the British government's zero-emission plans by 2050. The EU skeptic is calling for the statutory targets to be reviewed, and he's not alone in this. Nigel Farage is familiar with referendums. For years, the co-founder of the Eurosceptic right-wing populist UK Independence Party, or UKIP, has pushed the British government ahead of him with calls for a referendum to remain in the European Union. Now he's moving on the next issue, reducing emissions. Talking about the remain, voting about it. Net zero is net stupid, begins an opinion piece by Farage in the Mail on Sunday over the weekend. The political establishment in Westminster has taken a devastating path for the country, he wrote. He speaks of high debts that taxpayers would face, but which few politicians would dare to name. It's a scandal of monumental proportions, so today we're launching a campaign for a referendum on the net zero craze, he wrote. Prime Minister Boris Johnson refused to do so, but he's now coming under pressure from within his own ranks. Johnson stressed earlier this week that the government is not moving away from the legally guaranteed commitment to reduce net new issuance to zero by 2050. But the country urgently needs more self-sufficiency in the energy supply. In response to the significant price increases on the oil and gas markets and the announcement by the USA and Great Britain, among others, that they would stop energy imports from Russia, of course because of the war and the aggression in Ukraine, he announced a new energy strategy for the country. It's absolutely the right way to break away from dependency on Russian hydrocarbons, but we have to do it step by step, Johnson said. It's now crucial to find alternative sources. One of the things we're looking at is the possibility of using more of our own hydrocarbons. We have to expand our independence. Economics Minister Kwasi Kwarteng has given companies until the end of the year to look for alternatives to Russian oil, which accounts for around 8% of demand today. After that, the imports are stopped completely. He's also looking for alternatives when it comes to gas. Deliveries from Russia have an even smaller share here at 4%. Options include increased use of oil and gas from UK deposits in the North Sea. Britain is a major producer of oil and oil products, and we also hold significant reserves, Kwarteng said. According to British media reports, the government should soon issue permits for the development of North Sea wells for the first time since 2019. Development plans could be approved for up to 6 projects. These are oil and gas fields that are known but still lack the environmental and safety permits that are a prerequisite for production. With this push for forced expansion in the North Sea, Johnson and his government colleagues are turning environmental groups against themselves. They call for a complete moratorium on mining in the North Sea. Otherwise, the ambitious emissions targets that the Conservative government has set itself would not be enforced. In June 2019, Parliament agreed, at the time without objection, to enshrine the goal of net zero new issuances by 2050 in law. Great Britain was always happy to point out its pioneering role. But the consensus on the question of net zero is over. A net zero scrutiny group has formed among Conservative MPs pushing for a review of the 2050 target. The parliamentarians, whose number is estimated at almost 20, emphasize that they are not at all concerned with questioning the scientific evidence for climate change. Rather, they refer to the costs of switching to renewable energy sources against the background of the significant price increases that consumers are currently facing anyway, due to high inflation and especially the significant jump in energy prices since the summer. They also cite the danger of a culture war surrounding environmental goals. Citizens tend to vote on what their wallets feel like, MP Craig McKinlay, leader of this new group, told the BBC. It's the NZSG. It's correspondingly dangerous to burden the population with these costs, they say. The group is not particularly important so far. Johnson's government has a majority of 77 votes in the lower house. The smaller number makes up for the group with loudness. In mid-February, numerous parliamentarians and the chairman of all 8 non-partisan committees felt obliged to write an open letter to point out that the large majority in parliament still supported the statutory goal of net zero. The requirement was also a central aspect of the government's election programme or the manifesto in 2019. The British Office of Budget Responsibility estimates that the costs of the planned reduction in emissions over the next 3 decades will average 0.4% of gross domestic product or GDP. However, the economists emphasize that the costs for the national economy would be significantly higher if it were not to succeed, at least partially tackle climate change. One of the problems that the country has been suffering from for years is increasing coastal erosion as a result of a larger number of severe storms. For the time being, shorter-term alternatives for the energy supply are in the foreground. In addition to new development contracts in the North Sea, the expansion of wind energy plays a key role. The current capacity of more than 24 gigawatts is to be expanded to 40 gigawatts by 2030. In addition, the government supports attempts to build a network of mini-nuclear power plants in the country. Economics Minister Queere, on the other hand, does not want to allow any renewed discussion about fracking. Tests at 2 shale gas wells in Lancashire were halted in 2019 after scientists and safety officials warned that seismic effects could be detected around the wells. All of these energy projects involve significant lead times. They will therefore not reduce the current considerable price pressure on household energy costs. Analysts are already fearing the cap on household energy bills would be raised to £3,000 a year in October. That would mean more than doubling within a year. The threshold is currently £1,277. From April it will rise to £1,971. On the other hand, little attention has so far been paid to the possibilities of saving energy through better insulation. Consultancy Element Energy estimates that 2/3 of the country's old stock would need less than £10,000 to reach acceptable standards. Almost 40% of gas consumption in the country is used to heat private homes. Such approaches are likely to be too silly for Farage. The politician who sat for UKIP in the UK Parliament for a long time made it clear back in 2008 what he thinks of climate protection initiatives. On the occasion of a speech by the British heir to the throne, in which Prince Charles called on the EU leadership to stand up for the climate, Farage demonstratively remained seated during a standing ovation. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.